You walk softly through the dense, timeless forest. The chill clings to the air, but it is not the cold that grates against your skin, it is the weight of something ancient watching. The whispers of the forest speak in a language lost to the world, yet their meaning still flickers like the last remnants of a fading dream. Here, in the land of Thrace, where the mountains kiss the sky and the trees stretch to the heavens, there is a story long buried, forgotten by all but the shadows themselves. Bendis, the Moon Huntress, was not born from the stars or the earth, but from the moon itself. Her existence began not with the voice of creation, but in the quiet of the night, beneath the veil of the moon's ethereal glow. She was a goddess, yes, but her powers were not those of other gods, who demanded the worship of kings and cities. Her dominion was the wilderness, the darkened places where the wolves roam and the night creatures rule. The only tribute Bendis required was the hunt. But the hunt was not just a matter of survival, for in Bendis's world, survival itself was sacred. Her followers believed that with each arrow loosed in the dark, each beast brought low, they were honoring the very cycles of the universe, the rise and fall of the moon, the turning of the seasons, the rhythm of life and death. She was not a goddess of fertility or war, but of balance. And in that balance, she carved a path for herself through the hearts of the people of Thrace. Bendis's worship was a secret affair, practiced in the deepest forests where the light of the moon barely touched the earth. Only a few were chosen to partake in her rituals, for only those who could prove themselves worthy by surviving the night within her domain were allowed to stand before her. And even then, they knew that to receive her blessing was to be bound to the eternal cycles of the hunt. It is said that the moon itself whispered to Bendis, and through her, it whispered to her followers. Her bout, crafted by the hands of those who could speak to the trees, was her bond to the heavens. And the beasts that fell beneath its aim were not mere animals, but sacred messengers, their spirits bound to the very fabric of time itself. Her name, though once sung across the forests, faded with the years, slipping from memory like sand through fingers. No grand temples stood in her honor, no grand myths painted in the light of day. Instead, Bendis was a ghost in the moonlight, a whispered name spoken only in the quietest hours of the night. But her story is not one of complete silence. For in the darkness, those who still worship her tell of rituals long lost, of symbols forgotten by all but the most devout. One such symbol is a crescent, not of gold or stone, but of bonus symbol, tied to the first hunt and the first moonlit night. It is said that those who wear it are granted a glimpse into the hidden world of Bendis, where the lines between hunter and hunted blur, and the moonlight becomes a path to the sacred. In the whispers of the wind and the creaking of the trees, the tale of Bendis begins to unfurl, a story that must be told. A story that speaks of forgotten rituals and lost gods, of a hunt that never truly ends. And as you stand there in the heart of the forest, you feel her presence. Quiet, yet undeniable. Waiting? Oh. Let's get started with today's story. The moon rises slowly in the sky, casting a soft, silvery light across the land. The shadows of trees stretch long and haunting, as if reaching out to touch the very fabric of the night. It is in this glow, this sacred illumination, that Bendis's power truly awakens. Her followers believed that the moon was not merely a celestial body, but the pulse of the world itself. The cycles of the moon were the heartbeat of nature, a rhythm to which all things, from the humblest insect to the grandest beast, were attuned. The hunt in the world of Bendis was not a simple matter of chasing and killing. It was a ritual, one that mirrored the movements of the moon itself. The phases of the moon governed the hunts. During the waxing moon, when the light began to swell, the hunters would prepare, gathering their strength and their tools. In this phase, Bendis's followers sought to track the most elusive of creatures, those that were hidden in the densest parts of the forest. For it was said that the waxing moon illuminated the hidden paths of the earth. The full moon, however, was when the hunt reached its peak. It was a time when Bendis herself was said to roam the forest, guiding her hunters with her silver light. The animals of the night, guided by some unseen force, would move freely under the full moon, becoming part of a sacred dance. To kill during this time was to honor Bendis. To offer a life to the goddess in exchange for another life in the form of meat, yes, but also as a spiritual offering. The hunt was seen as an exchange, a sacred pact between the mortal and the divine. As the moon waned, the hunt took on a different meaning. The followers of Bendis would hunt not for sustenance, but for wisdom, for insight into the cycles of life and death. The waning moon, believed to be a time of reflection, allowed them to commune with the spirits of the forest, offering the spirits of the slain animals as messages. The animal spirits would return to the earth, whispered into the soil by the dying moonlight, to be reborn again. In this ritual, there was one sacred symbol that guided the hunt: the crescent moon. This crescent, often carved into the earth itself or drawn in the dirt by the hunters, represented the bond between Bendis, the moon, and the hunters. It was the symbol of transformation, the beginning and the end, the light and the shadow. Those who wore it were not just hunters, they were mediators between the world of the living and the realm of the gods. But the hunt itself was not just an act of worship, it was a journey into the unknown, a test of the hunter's spirit. To survive the hunt was to prove oneself worthy, to walk the path that Bendis herself walked in her endless pursuit of balance. The forests of Thrace, wild and untamed, were the stage for this sacred drama. Every step taken beneath the moonlight was a step toward understanding the eternal dance between predator and prey, life and death. In this sacred act, however, there were those who believed the hunt could unlock more than just understanding. Some whispered that Bendis's hunters were granted glimpses into realms beyond their own, where the veil between the living and the dead grew thin. It was said that in the quiet aftermath of the hunt, when the world was still and the moon was high, Bendis's followers could hear the spirits of the animals they had slain. These spirits, they believed, offered not just messages but wisdom from the moon herself. They spoke of truths that were hidden from the eyes of the living, of ancient secrets buried deep within the forest's heart. The hunt then became more than just a ritual. It was a journey into the unknown, a quest for understanding that few were truly prepared for. The bond between Bendis and her followers was sealed not just by the act of hunting, but by the communion that followed. To kill, to listen, and to understand the message of the spirits, that was the true purpose of the hunt. And in that, there was a sacred truth that was passed down through generations. Whispered in the night, carried on the wind that rustled through the trees. As you stand in the heart of the forest, you feel the weight of this ancient bond. The moonlight bathes the land in its soft glow, and for a moment, you are no longer just an observer. You are a part of this cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The hunt is never over. The moon is always waiting, watching. And Bendis, the Moon Huntress, is always there, guiding the way, a quiet whisper in the night. The night deepens, and with it, the shadows of forgotten truths begin to stir. Bendis, in her grace and silence, is not without her mysteries, nor without those who dare to seek more than the rituals prescribed by the hunt. Beneath the moon's gentle gaze, her followers lived in reverence, their hearts bound to the moonlit cycles. Yet as with all things hidden beneath the cloak of silence, there were whispers of practices that were not shared with all, of forbidden rituals and heretical symbols that spoke of another, darker side to the worship of the Moon Huntress. In the dense forests of Thrace, where the path between the living and the dead seemed so thin, there existed a secret cult within Bendis's worship. It was a cult that practiced not the moonlit hunt, but rituals of a more sinister nature, where the boundaries between the living, the dead, and the divine were blurred. These followers, bound not by the light of the moon, but by the darkness between its phases, believed that the true power of Bendis lay in the blood of the hunt. They whispered that the sacrifice of an animal was merely a veil, a mask that hid the true offering, one that could only be made in the heart of the forest, under the full embrace of the dark moon. This cult held a forbidden belief, one that set them apart from the rest of Bendis's worshippers. They believed that Bendis herself was not just a huntress, but the harbinger of a spiritual transformation, one that could transcend the cycles of life and death. They worshipped not the phases of the moon, but the spaces in between the shadows where the living could touch the realm of the gods. It was there, in the void, that the cult performed their most dangerous rites. They sought communion with the spirits of the forest, but not in the way the other hunters did. Their rituals were not prayers of thanks, but offerings designed to bridge the gap between life and death. The heretical symbol of this cult was simple yet profound: a circle, half filled with a crescent moon, where the crescent moon had once symbolized the hunt. Here it symbolized the eternal pursuit not of animals, but of the gods themselves. The circle, unbroken, represented the cycle of death and rebirth, but this version was twisted. The cult believed that the moon did not simply illuminate the hunt, but also the path to immortality. Immortality that could be achieved only by crossing the threshold between the living and the dead. They were willing to sacrifice not just animals, but themselves, and in doing so, they believed they could achieve something greater, something eternal. There were rumors that in the deepest part of the forest, where the moonlight could not reach, the cult gathered beneath the trees that had stood since time began. There they invoked Bendis, not as the huntress, but as a goddess of transformation. It was said that they invoked her name in a chant that resonated through the night, calling upon the spirits that slumbered beneath the earth. Their rituals were heretical, performed in the stillness of the darkest night, where the moon was absent. They believed that only in the absence of light could one truly glimpse the divine, a belief that echoed the teachings of those who had fallen into madness. But not all who sought to understand Bendis in this way found the same path. Many of these heretics were driven to madness, their minds slowly unraveling as they attempted to peer into the void to see the truths that lay hidden in the darkness. The moonlight, once a guide, became a curse as they sought to cross the boundaries of life and death. The rituals they performed were not merely forbidden, they were dangerous, threatening the very fabric of the spiritual realm. Those who survived these rites found themselves forever changed, marked by the spirits they had summoned, their minds haunted by visions of what they had glimpsed beyond the veil. The cult's teachings were whispered only in the darkest corners of the world, passed down in fragments, buried in forgotten texts, and dismissed by the followers of the more orthodox Bendis worshippers. Yet even as the gods of Thrace fell into obscurity, the remnants of this heretical belief persisted. And as the centuries passed, those who dared to study the occult and the forbidden found themselves drawn to the shadows of Bendis, seeking the power promised by the cult's twisted practices. But the question remains unanswered, lingering like a forgotten prayer. What truly did they seek? Was it immortality? Was it the power to transcend the limits of human existence? Or did they, in the end, seek something far more dangerous, the chance to commune with something older than the moon itself, a force that even Bendis could not control? In the stillness of the forest, as you listen to the wind stirring the ancient trees, you wonder, are those whispers still carried on the night air? And if so, what might they reveal about Bendis's true nature? Hidden in the shadows between the moon's phases, waiting for someone brave enough to hear her call? The moonlight bathes the world in its quiet glow, yet beneath its pale illumination, something else lies hidden. The forest of Thrace, thick and untamed, still holds its secrets older than any kingdom, older than any city. And within these forests, where the trees have stood for centuries, there are whispers of forgotten temples. Temples dedicated to Bendis, the Moon Huntress, long buried under the weight of time, as though the earth itself sought to conceal them. These temples were not grand structures of marble or stone, but instead, they were built into the heart of the land itself, crafted with reverence for the natural world. The few who have dared to search for them speak of strange markings etched into the earth, runes and symbols that have long since faded from the memory of men. Some claim these temples were not made by human hands at all. The legends speak of a time when the gods walked the earth, and in those days, Bendis herself might have wandered these forests, leaving behind a trace of her power, a power that bound the land to her will. In the deeper parts of the forest, where the sun hardly reaches and the air is thick with the scent of moss and decay, there are ruins. Scattered across the underbrush, broken stones half swallowed by the earth. These remnants are all that remain of what might have once been a sacred place, temple where the followers of Bendis gathered to honor their goddess. And yet no scholar has ever found conclusive proof of their existence. The ruins are shrouded in myth and mystery, as though the land itself keeps them hidden, guarding the secrets they hold. The true purpose of these temples is lost to time. Some believe they were places of worship, where the followers of Bendis would come to offer sacrifices, to perform their sacred rites beneath the moon's watchful gaze. But others whispered that these temples served another, Darker purpose that they were places where the cult of Bendis performed forbidden rituals, seeking power that no mortal should possess. There is one tale, passed down among the few remaining guardians of the ancient knowledge, that speaks of a temple hidden in a valley so deep that no man has ever truly reached its heart. The temple was said to be built into the earth itself, with walls carved from the very rock, its floors polished smooth by the passage of time. The air around it was thick with magic, the kind of magic that cannot be touched by mere hands. Those who entered spoke of hearing the faint echo of a bowstring in the air, the soft sound of arrows being released, even when no one was there. It was as though the goddess herself still hunted in the depths of the temple, guiding her followers with her unseen hand. The temple's inner sanctum was said to contain a great altar, upon which lay a crescent-shaped stone, a relic of Bendis herself. It was believed that this stone held the power to commune with the goddess, to seek her guidance or her wrath, but it was also said that those who touched it were forever changed. The power it contained was not meant for mortals, and those who sought it often disappeared, lost to the wilds of the forest, their fates unknown. But these tales are all that remain of the lost temple's rumors and half-remembered stories, passed down through the ages like fragments of a shattered mirror. No one has ever found conclusive evidence of their existence. No stone or carving that would prove they were ever there. The scholars who have searched the forest speak of ruins that do not fit the patterns of human construction, as though the temples were made by an unknown hand. And yet, no matter how many times the temples are sought, they remain elusive, slipping further away from the grasp of history, as if the earth itself wishes to forget them. And still, in the deepest, darkest corners of the forest, there are those who believe that the temples still exist, hidden, waiting to be discovered once more. They believe that Bendis herself watches over the land, guarding the secrets of her ancient worship. And perhaps in the quiet moments, when the moonlight flickers through the trees and the forest seems to hold its breath, they might hear the faintest echo of the past, a whisper carried on the wind. The temples may be lost, but the memory of Bendis, like the moon itself, will never fade completely. It lingers in the forest, in the whispers of the trees and the rustle of the leaves, waiting for those who seek her out. The truth of her temples may never be known, but the legacy of the Moon Huntress endures, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover it. The moon's cold light filters through the canopy, casting long, twisted shadows that seem to move with the wind, as though they carry within them the spirits of ancient hunters. Tonight, the hunt is not just a ritual. It is a mystery, a journey into the unknown. As the moon ascends to its fullest height, a strange silence falls over the forest. The air is thick with anticipation, as though the world itself holds its breath, waiting for something unseen to unfold. The followers of Bendis knew that the hunt was more than a mere act of survival. It was a sacred communion between mortal and divine, with every arrow loosed, every beast brought down by their hands. They offered not only sustenance, but something far more profound, a connection to the eternal. They believed that through the hunt, they could touch the divine, bridging the gap between the living and the gods. But as the centuries passed, there arose a question, a forbidden question, whispered in the dark corners of sacred groves and hidden temples. Could the hunt grant immortality? This was not a belief shared by all, but among the most devout followers of Bendis, there were those who dared to seek an answer to this unsettling thought. The belief was simple, yet deeply unsettling. If the hunt could connect one to the gods, and the gods were eternal, then surely, through the hunt, one could glimpse eternity itself. It was a dangerous belief. Those who sought immortality through the hunt did not simply desire to prolong their lives. No, they sought something deeper, transformation, a union with the goddess herself. It was said that those who were truly worthy could become part of the forest, becoming one with the animals they had slain, the trees they had hidden beneath. They believed that Bendis, in her wisdom, granted them the ultimate reward, the power to transcend death, to live as part of the eternal cycle of nature. The rituals associated with this forbidden belief were shrouded in mystery, and many have been lost to time. But there are fragments, old texts, hidden scrolls, and the words of dying men that tell of a ceremony performed under the full moon. It was during this ritual that the hunter would stand alone in the heart of the forest, the moonlight bathing them in its cold glow. They would call upon Bendis, offering their life's blood as a sacrifice. In return, the goddess would grant them a vision and ethereal glimpse into the realm of the gods, where time itself did not exist. It was said that those who were chosen were shown the endless paths of the forest, paths that stretched beyond the boundaries of the mortal world leading into eternity. But there was a price to be paid for this gift. Those who took part in this sacred ritual were forever changed. They were no longer merely men and women, but something more, something other. Their bodies, though they remained mortal, were marked by the goddess. Their senses were heightened, their strength increased, and they could hear the whispers of the forest in ways that no other being could. Yet with this transformation came madness, a slow, creeping madness that gnawed at the edges of their minds, making them question whether they were still human, or whether they had become something more and something less. The question that haunted them was whether they had truly become immortal, or whether the curse of immortality had taken root in their souls. The very essence of their being became intertwined with the forest, and over time, it became impossible to tell where the hunter ended and the forest began. The spirits of the animals they had slain, the spirits of the forest itself, seemed to cling to them, speaking in whispers that only they could hear. They became part of the endless cycle of life and death, neither fully alive nor fully dead. There were those who believed that this was the true secret of Bendis. The gift of immortality was not a gift at all, but a curse. To transcend death was to lose oneself, to become a part of the forest, a part of the wild hunt that would never cease. The hunter would never again be able to walk among men, for they had become something else, something bound to the wild, to the moon, and to Bendis herself. Some sought this immortality willingly, drawn by the promise of eternal life, while others stumbled upon it by accident, their fates sealed by a simple, unsuspecting hunt. But the end result was always the same. Those who partook in the sacred hunt would never truly return to the world of men. They were lost to the forest, their souls forever bound to the goddess, never to be seen again. And yet, in the whispers of the trees and the howling of wolves, their presence lingered eternal, restless, waiting for the next hunter to walk the path. As you stand there, bathed in the silvery light of the full moon, you can almost feel the pull of the hunt. The weight of centuries presses upon you, as though the very land itself is calling to you. The forest is alive, and in its depths, Bendis watches, her gaze both fierce and tender. The hunt is never over, and neither is the question. What is the true cost of immortality? Is it the endless cycle of the hunt, or the slow unraveling of the self? The answer, it seems, is lost to time, forever hidden in the shadows of the moonlit forest. The wind stirs restlessly through the trees, a soft sigh that echoes with ancient sorrow. Beneath the soft glow of the moon, the forest takes on an almost otherworldly presence, its deep shadows stretching long and strange. But there is something else in the air tonight, something heavier, darker. The light of the moon, so long revered as a sacred guide, now feels oppressive, as though it holds within it a curse, an ancient, forgotten weight that cannot be undone. The moon has always been a symbol of Bendis' dominion, her pale light, a beacon for the hunt, her phases marking the rhythms of life, death, and rebirth. But as the centuries passed, this once pure light began to grow darker in the eyes of her followers. It was not just the light of guidance anymore, but the light of something more sinister, something that began to drive the devout to madness. There were those who believed that the moon itself was cursed, that the very act of communing with Bendis beneath its light could twist the mind, cloud the soul, and sever the bond between hunter and reality. These were the whispers that passed through the hidden groves of Thrace, passed down from the ancient followers of Bendis, who began to speak of the moon not as a divine guide, but as a harbinger of something far darker. It is said that when the moon is full and its light spills like silver across the earth, it can reveal hidden truths that no mortal mind is prepared to witness. These truths, once glimpsed, could not be forgotten. Those who dared to stare too long into the moon's gaze found themselves caught in its spell, their sanity slipping like water through their fingers. The hunt, once a sacred act of communion with the divine, began to feel less like an offering and more like an initiation into an unknowable, dangerous truth. The curse of the moon was not merely madness, though. It was a corruption, a slow, creeping change that seeped into the hearts of those who walked the path of Bendis. The curse transformed the light of the moon into something that was not of this world, something older and more primal. Some believed that the curse was Bendis's own doing, that she had grown tired of her followers, tired of their worship, and had turned her gaze upon them with anger. Others whispered that it was the result of a forgotten ritual, a forbidden act performed by her earliest followers, a ritual that altered the very essence of the moon itself, forever changing its power. The most chilling aspect of the curse was the way it affected the spirits of the animals slain in the hunt. No longer did the spirits offer wisdom or guidance. Now they came as whispers of torment, their voices filled with agony. These spirits, once at peace with the cycle of life and death, had become trapped in a loop, unable to move on, bound to the forest by the dark magic that had tainted the moonlight. It is said that those who spoke to these spirits were driven mad, haunted by their endless cries. They would walk the forest, hearing the tormented wails of creatures that could never truly die, never truly rest. The spirits would follow them, whispering their pain into the hunter's ear, gnawing at their very soul. But it was not just the spirits of the forest that suffered. Those who dared to perform the rituals beneath the cursed light began to change in other, more subtle ways. Their minds twisted, their bodies weakened, and they began to crave the hunt with an insatiable hunger. The curse of the moon, it seemed, was not just an external force, but something that permeated the very being of those who sought its power. The more they embraced the moon's light, the more they became a part of it, losing their humanity in exchange for the twisted, immortal power that the moon promised. The hunters, once proud and strong, became mere shadows of themselves, shells driven only by the need to hunt, to sacrifice, to appease the cursed moon that now ruled them. They were no longer men and women, but creatures of the night, lost to the very darkness they had once sought to control. The moon, once a guide, had become their tormentor. As you stand beneath the silvery light, you feel it, the weight of the curse, pressing down on your chest, whispering in the corners of your mind. The trees sway with an eerie rhythm, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. The moon shines down, its light both beautiful and terrible, casting long, distorted shadows that stretch into the unknown. You wonder, what price did Bendis pay to be tied to the moon? And what price do her followers now pay for that same bond? Perhaps the curse of the moon is not simply the madness that it brings, but something deeper, more insidious, something that feeds on the very essence of those who seek its power. And perhaps in the silence of the forest, the hunt is not the end, but the beginning of a transformation that can never be undone. The cursed light of the moon watches over you, its gaze unwavering, its promise eternal. The whispers grow louder with each step you take into the heart of the forest, where the trees seem to close in, their branches interwoven like a web. It is here, in the deepest shadows, that the forgotten rituals of Bendis were once carried out. The path grows narrower, the air heavier, as though you are crossing into a place where time itself has forgotten to move. The moonlight flickers faintly through the thick canopy, but it does not reach the ground in full. Here, the darkness holds sway, and the earth seems to pulse with an ancient energy. The rituals of Bendis were not meant for the uninitiated, for they delved into powers that were not simply of this world. It was believed that the goddess herself could be called upon in these sacred spaces, her presence felt in the rustling of leaves, in the shifting of the earth beneath your feet. Yet these rituals were not performed by all her followers, for they required a purity of intent, a willingness to surrender oneself completely to the goddess and the hunt. Only those who had proven themselves worthy through years of dedicated practice were allowed to perform these rites. But the true nature of these rituals is now lost to all but the most secretive of her followers. Fragments of the rites remain, shattered prayers, half-remembered chants, and scattered relics, all of which point toward a much darker, more mystical aspect of Bendis's worship than was ever publicly known. Those who sought to commune with her were not simply hunters. They were seekers, those who sought to transcend the boundaries of the mortal world and enter into something far more dangerous. It is said that the first of these forgotten rituals was performed on a night of the full moon, when the light of the moon was at its strongest. The hunters would gather in the deepest part of the forest, where the trees were ancient and the air smelled of damp earth and the promise of secrets. There, they would draw a circle on the ground, not with chalk or fire, but with the blood of the first animal they had slain that season. The circle was both a protective boundary and an invitation to the goddess, for within it they would call upon her name. They would chant her name 3 times, each time louder, until the moon itself seemed to tremble in the sky. The air would grow still, the forest silent, as though holding its breath. Then, in the heart of the circle, the hunters would offer their prayers. Not for protection or victory in the hunt, but for a deeper communion, a sharing of souls between mortal and goddess. The belief was that, in this moment, they could become one with Bendis, shedding their humanity to become part of the wild, part of the eternal cycle of the hunt. But there was a cost. The ritual was said to open a portal, a thin veil between the mortal world and the divine, and those who entered it were not guaranteed to return. Some who took part in these rites were believed to have crossed over into the realm of the gods, never to be seen again. Others returned, but they were not the same. Their eyes would be hollow, their minds lost in the wilderness, as though something had been taken from them that could never be replaced. The hunters who returned spoke of strange visions of the forest, the animals and Bendis herself, walking beside them in the shadows of the moon. But these visions were not comforting. They were haunting, filled with a sense of longing, as if the hunters had glimpsed a truth too terrible to fully comprehend. There was also a darker aspect to these rituals, a belief held by a few that Bendis herself had no desire to simply commune with her followers. She wanted them to prove their worth by offering something far more precious than their lives, their very souls. This heretical belief suggested that Bendis sought to merge the soul of the hunter with the essence of the forest itself, creating a bond that could never be severed. Those who agreed to this, so the stories go, would become something more than human. Something between the living and the dead, forever bound to the land and the goddess they served. This was a fate that no one truly desired, yet those who craved immortality, true immortality, were willing to take the risk. They believed that in merging with the goddess, they would transcend the boundaries of mortal life and become part of the forest's eternal cycle. They would no longer be bound by time, nor by the need to hunt. Instead, they would become one with the forest, with the spirits of the slain animals, and with Bendis herself. But there was a price to this power. The hunter who merged with Bendis was lost to the world, lost to humanity. Their body would continue to walk the earth, but their soul would be lost in the shadows of the forest, forever wandering, forever hunting, no longer able to return to the lives they had once known. These hunters would become part of the very wilderness they had once loved. Unable to break free from the eternal hunt that had claimed them, these forgotten rituals, lost to time and erased from the public memory, remain a haunting part of Bendis's legacy. They are the dark side of her worship, mystical, dangerous, and deeply unsettling. Yet the forest still remembers. The trees still whisper of the hunters who sought Bendis's power and of the price they paid. And in the stillness of the night, if you listen closely, you might hear the faintest echo of those lost souls, forever chasing the hunt they can never escape. The moon, once a source of reverence, now hangs heavy in the sky, its pale light casting long shadows over the desolate landscape. A chill has taken root in the heart of the forest, and with it, a deep silence. The hunt is no longer a sacred ritual, but a hollow echo of its former glory. The goddess Bendis, once so powerful and revered, has faded into memory. Her presence no longer felt in the rustling leaves or the steady beat of the hunteress' heart. She is a shadow now, a whisper carried on the wind, a myth lost to time. It is said that the demise of Bendis was not a sudden fall, but a slow, agonizing fade. As the centuries passed, her followers began to dwindle. The old rites grew more obscure, whispered only in the darkest corners of the forest. The worship of Bendis was no longer a way of life, but a relic of an ancient time and era that had long since passed into the shadow of more powerful gods. The world had changed, and so too had the gods. The exact cause of Bendis's demise remains a mystery, but many believe it was tied to the rise of the new gods. The gods of civilization, and order those who demanded the worship of kings and empires. As the cities of Thrace grew, and the kings sought to consolidate their power. The old gods of the forests were pushed aside. Bendis, the Moon Huntress, a goddess of the wild, found herself eclipsed by the might of these new deities. Perhaps it was the shift in the balance of power that caused her to withdraw from the mortal world. The stories say that one by one, the temples dedicated to her were abandoned. The sacred groves where her followers once gathered fell silent, and the ancient altars were left to decay. The hunters who once called upon her name in reverence now called upon new gods, their hearts no longer tuned to the rhythms of the moon. There are those who believe that Bendis's demise was not an accident, but a quiet surrender. The goddess, tired of the endless cycle of life and death, chose to fade into the shadows, retreating from the mortal world. The once vibrant forests of Thrace, where her power had thrived, slowly began to wither. The moon, which had once shone so brightly, grew dimmer with each passing year. Its light no longer a guide, but a pale imitation of what it had been. Some speak of a final hidden ritual, a last offering to the goddess performed by the last of her devoted followers. It was said that in the depths of the forest, beneath the full moon, they gathered one last time to honor their goddess. They performed the ancient rites, calling upon her name one final time, offering their prayers and sacrifices in the hope that she would return, that she would reawaken from her long slumber. But the ritual, like so many others, was in vain. No. Bendis did not answer. She did not return. And so her worship slipped away entirely, leaving only the ghosts of her followers and the echoes of the ancient hunt. As the centuries passed, the forest continued to change. The once untamed wilderness of Thrace was tamed, carved up by human hands, and turned into fields and villages. The old groves were cut down, and the animals that once roamed freely in Bendis's name were driven away. The land once sacred to the goddess became just another part of the mortal world, another place where the memory of the divine was buried beneath the weight of time. Yet even in her absence, something of Bendis remains. The moon still rises in the sky, its light as cold and mysterious as ever. The forest, though diminished, still stands as a reminder of the wildness that once was. And in the stillness of the night, when the wind whispers through the trees, some say they can still hear the faint echo of the hunt, a sound that calls to those who are willing to listen. Bendis may no longer walk the earth, but her spirit endures in the shadows. Her legacy, though forgotten by most, still lingers in the hearts of those who seek the wild places, who listen to the moonlit whispers of the past. Her followers may be gone, but the hunt, the eternal pursuit of something greater, remains. And in the deepest parts of the forest, where the moon's light still shines faintly, it is said that she waits. Perhaps one day she will return, and the hunt will begin again. But until that time comes, Bendis remains a figure of myth, a goddess lost to the sands of time. Her name is no longer spoken in the temples, but carried only in the wind and the trees. She is the Moon Huntress, eternal in her silence, waiting for the moment when the world is ready to hear her call once more. The kingdom of Thrace flourished for a time, its kings powerful, their thrones unshaken. As the cities grew, so too did their ambitions. Yet in the shadows of their opulent palaces and sprawling fields, the ancient ways continued to linger, rituals whispered in the ears of those few who still sought the old gods. Among them was Bendis, the Moon Huntress, a goddess of the wilds, the hunt, and the mysteries that lay hidden beneath the moonlit sky. But her reign was not to last. It was a betrayal, subtle and calculated, that led to her downfall. The Thracian kings, in their desire to strengthen their dominion over their lands, began to turn away from the old gods and toward more powerful deities, gods of conquest, gods of empire, gods who demanded not just worship, but tribute in the form of cities and soldiers. And in this new vision of power, there was no place for the goddess of the wilds. In the quiet chambers of the palace, the kings began to make plans, discussing how to consolidate their power and ensure their reign was unchallenged. To do so, they would need to erase the old ways, the old beliefs that threatened their control. Bendis, once a goddess revered by the people of Thrace, was now seen as a symbol of the past, a reminder of a time when the forest ruled the hearts of men, and not the kings of stone and iron. She was a relic, and the kings had no place for relics. They did not confront her directly, for they knew that the power of the goddess still lingered in the land. Deep in the shadows of the ancient forest, instead they enacted their betrayal in the most subtle of ways. They ordered the temples dedicated to her to be abandoned, their altars left to crumble, and their sacred groves defiled. They sent their soldiers into the forests to cut down the ancient trees, to silence the very land that had once been the domain of Bendis. The hunt, once a sacred rite, became nothing more than a tool of the kings, stripped of its divine meaning. This betrayal was not swift, it was a gradual erosion, a quiet undermining of the goddess's power. The kings did not need to slay Bendis, directly her followers did that for them. As the worship of the Moon Huntress faded, so too did the forest's connection to the divine. The people, once devoted to the rituals of the hunt, now turned to the new gods, whose power promised not only dominion over the earth, but over the heavens themselves. Yet there were whispers, carried on the wind, of a darker price to pay. The land itself began to feel the weight of the betrayal. The trees that had once stood tall and proud began to wither, their leaves falling in unnatural patterns. The animals that roamed the forest, once abundant and free, grew scarce. Some said it was the forest's way of mourning, others that it was the moon itself, casting a shadow over the land as a sign of Bendis's wrath. But no matter the explanation, the result was the same. The heart of Thrace's wilderness began to wither. The people, though no longer following the goddess, still felt her presence in the quiet corners of their lives. The moon, which had once been a guide, now seemed colder, its light dimmer with each passing year. The hunt, once sacred, now felt like an empty ritual, a hollow echo of a past that had been erased. The Thracian kings, in their quest for power, had turned their backs on the goddess who had once watched over them, and in doing so they had cursed themselves to rule a land that no longer thrived. The forests were silent, and the gods of the old world were no more. Yet the most chilling aspect of this betrayal is the legacy it left behind. The king's conquest of the land may have succeeded in erasing Bendis from the public eye, but they could not erase the memory of the goddess from the very fabric of the earth. The betrayal was not just a betrayal of the goddess, it was a betrayal of the land itself. And in the quiet spaces where the forest once thrived, where the whispers of Bendis's presence still linger, the ancient curse persists. It is said that the land is now bound to the memory of the goddess, locked in a cycle of rebirth and decay, waiting for the moment when the hunt will begin again. The kings of Thrace may have won their battle against the old ways, but they could not escape the consequences of their actions. The betrayal of Bendis sealed the fate of their empire, for a kingdom that turns its back on the earth, that sacrifices the ancient ways for the promise of power, is destined to fall. And as the centuries passed, the people of Thrace found themselves disconnected from the land, their bond with the forest broken. The kings may have erased the memory of Bendis from their temples, but they could not erase her spirit, nor could they escape the curse of their betrayal. And so, in the quiet of the forest, where the trees stand like silent sentinels, the memory of Bendis lingers, waiting. Her time may have passed, her worship lost, but the land remembers. The hunt, once sacred, is now a faint echo, but the goddess waits, her presence forever imprinted on the earth. In the stillness of the forest, beneath the ancient boughs that have witnessed the passage of countless years, something stirs. It begins as a faint rustling in the leaves, the slightest shift in the wind, as if the very land is holding its breath. And then, like a whisper carried on the wind, comes the call so old that it seems to echo from the deepest corners of time itself. The Moon Huntress Bendis has not forgotten her followers, and she is not gone forever. It is said that the goddess sleeps, hidden in the shadowed folds of the forest, her presence only dimly felt. For centuries, the worship of Bendis has been lost, buried beneath the weight of empire and the rise of new gods. But in the darkest hours of the night, when the moon is full and the land is still, her spirit awakens, calling to those who still remember, those who still listen. The hunt is not over. It has only been waiting for the right moment to begin again. There are those who still roam the forests of Thrace, the few scattered remnants of Bendis's forgotten followers. These are the ones who have never truly abandoned her, the ones who continue to speak her name in secret, who still seek the sacred groves, the hidden temples that lie buried beneath the earth. They speak of visions of the goddess, seen only in the corner of their eyes, glimpses of her figure moving like a shadow beneath the moon. And in these visions, she is not distant or faded. She is as she was strong, regal, the goddess of the hunt, the protector of the wilds. But Bendis's return is not as it once was. No longer does she walk the earth in full light, no longer does she lead her hunters with clear purpose. Instead, her presence is subtle, felt in the rustle of the leaves, in the brief flicker of the moonlight through the trees. Her followers, few and scattered, have learned that the hunt now is not just physical, but spiritual. To call upon Bendis is to walk a path that few are brave enough to tread, a path that leads into the heart of the forest, into the very depths of the mystery she once guarded. The goddess has not returned to reclaim her power over the land, nor to restore her temples. No, Bendis's return is more intimate, more personal. She calls only to those who are ready to hear her, those who are ready to accept the transformation she offers. The hunt is not just for animals. It is a hunt for truth, for understanding, for the self. To seek Bendis now is to seek not just communion with the goddess, but an understanding of the deepest parts of the soul, the parts that are wild, untamed, and forever connected to the earth. But there are dangers in this return, for not all who hear Bendis's call are prepared for the cost. The curse of immortality, once whispered among her followers, still lingers in the forest. To commune with Bendis now is to risk becoming lost, as so many of her followers did in the past. The path is fraught with peril, for those who seek to transcend the mortal world must first shed their humanity. The forest is not kind to those who are unprepared, and the goddess herself demands nothing less than total devotion. And yet, there are those who still venture into the wild places, seeking Bendis in the shadows of the trees, hoping to hear the ancient call once more. They gather in secret, in the deepest parts of the forest, beneath the full moon, and they perform the forgotten rituals. Some return with stories of strange visions, of glimpses of the goddess, of whispers that fill their minds and hearts. Others, however, do not return at all, lost to the forest, their fate sealed by their own desire for transcendence. In the silence of the night, the question remains: will Bendis fully return? Or will she remain a shadow, an echo of the past, waiting for the moment when the world is ready to remember her? The hunt has not ended, but it has changed, transformed into something different, something more subtle. The goddess is not forgotten, not completely. Her legacy, like the moon itself, rises and falls, waxing and waning with the passage of time. And so, beneath the light of the full moon, the hunt continues quietly, almost imperceptibly waiting for those brave enough to answer its call, to take part in the eternal cycle. For Bendis, the Moon Huntress is not gone. She waits, and in the deepest corners of the forest, where the trees stand silent and watchful, she is listening for those who still remember her name. The hunt has always been more than just a chase. It is a journey into the unknown, a quest for the soul. And so it begins again, not with the roar of the hunt, but with the faintest whisper of the wind, the softest call of the moon. The moon hangs heavy in the sky, casting its silvery glow over the forest. The night feels thick, as if the very air is heavy with secrets, with things unsaid, unsolved. Beneath the light, shadows stretch and grow, long fingers of darkness that reach for the edges of the earth. There is something different about the moon tonight, something that gnaws at the edge of reason. It pulses with an intensity that feels almost alive, almost sentient, watching those who wander beneath its gaze. The call of the huntress has reached a new crescendo, and with it comes an eerie madness that begins to seep into the hearts of those who dare to listen. Bendis, the Moon Huntress, is no longer just a goddess of the wild. She has become something more, a force, a presence that warps the very nature of reality for those who come too close. The moon's light, once a guiding force for the hunt, has become a harbinger of something far more unsettling. Her followers, those few who still seek her, find themselves drawn deeper into a world that is not entirely their own. It begins subtly, a fleeting thought, a shadow in the corner of the eye, a voice that whispers just beyond hearing. But soon it becomes impossible to ignore. The moon's light pulls at the mind, at the soul, till there is no separating the mortal from the divine, the living from the dead. Bendis's presence, once faint, becomes overwhelming, as though the very landscape is alive with her power. The hunt is no longer just a pursuit of animals. It is a descent into madness, a journey into a realm where the boundaries between self and other are blurred. Those who enter the heart of the forest, seeking Bendis, often return changed. Their eyes vacant, their minds haunted by what they have seen. The hunt has become a delirious dream-a-loop that traps the hunter in a never-ending spiral of visions and desires. The moonlight twists their perceptions, makes them question what is real and what is illusion. Some speak of hearing voices in the wind, of seeing figures that do not belong to the mortal world. These spirits, these shadows of the forest, are no longer benign. They're part of the madness that Bendis has become. As if the goddess herself has merged with the moonlight, her essence now bound to the very fabric of the forest. The more time one spends beneath the moon's gaze, the more difficult it becomes to tell where the hunt ends and madness begins. The hunt itself becomes an obsession, a compulsion that cannot be ignored. The desire to hunt is no longer about the animal, about the sustenance or the ritual. It is about losing oneself in the chase, about surrendering to the wild madness that calls from the shadows. The lines between hunter and hunted blur, and soon there is no difference. The hunter becomes the hunted, chasing after something they cannot name, something that exists only in the dark places of the mind. And yet, even as the hunt spirals into madness, there are those who willingly embrace it. For some, the moon's madness is not a curse, but a blessing, a chance to transcend the mundane, to experience a world beyond the limits of mortal understanding. These individuals, drawn to Bendis's call, believe that by losing themselves in the hunt, they will gain access to a deeper truth, the truth that cannot be understood by the human mind, but only by those who are willing to surrender their sanity in pursuit of it. The cult of Bendis, long hidden from the eyes of the world, has flourished in the shadows of the forest. These followers, not bound by the conventional laws of society, seek the madness that the moonlight offers. They believe that by giving themselves over to the goddess, they can unlock the hidden power of the hunt, the power to transcend time, to see beyond the veil of reality, to join Bendis in her eternal pursuit of balance. They are not afraid of the madness, for they believe it is the key to understanding the true nature of the world, a world that is wild, untamed, and full of mysteries that can never be fully understood. But madness comes at a cost. For every mind that embraces the moon's light, another is lost to it. The forest is full of those who have been consumed by Bendis's call, their bodies wandering the wilds like ghosts, their minds forever trapped in a never-ending hunt. They are the forgotten ones, the lost souls who sought the goddess and were swallowed whole by her power. They no longer know who they were before the hunt began. They're part of the forest now, part of the shadows that move beneath the moonlight. And so, the cycle continues. The moon calls, the hunt ensues, and madness spreads like wildfire through the forest. The hunters chase, but they no longer know what they are hunting. They have become part of the madness, part of the hunt itself. They are the embodiment of Bendis's power, wild, untamed, and forever searching for something that can never be caught. In the silence of the night, beneath the cold, watchful gaze of the moon, you can hear the faintest echo of the hunt. It calls to you, just as it calls to all who enter the forest. The moonlight wraps around you, pulling you deeper into the madness, deeper into the world where the lines between self and other, life and death, are no longer clear. The hunt has become the pursuit of something beyond understanding, a madness that cannot be escaped. The moon's light will guide you, if you are brave enough to follow. But be warned, once the hunt begins, there is no turning back. Beneath the light of the full moon, where the shadows of the forest stretch long and dark, there are whispers of a forbidden love tale buried beneath the weight of forgotten time, but one that still lingers in the hushed corners of the world. It is a story not told in temples or among the common folk, but rather passed on in secret, whispered only in the stillness of the night. It is said that once long ago, Bendis, the Moon Huntress, fell in love not with a mortal man, but with another god, a being whose power rivaled her own and whose very existence was as mysterious as the moonlight she herself ruled. The lover's name is lost to history, for he was not one of the gods known to the people of Thrace. Some say he was a god of the forest, another being of the wilds who, like Bendis, found power in the shadows and the silence. Others whisper that he was an ancient spirit, an elemental force that predated even the gods. His form was said to be ever-shifting, a figure of shadow and flame. a being who could take the shape of the winds or the trees or the very ground beneath their feet. Their love, though passionate, was not without its complications. Bendis, bound to the moon, and her lover, whose essence was tied to the earth and its elemental forces, existed in realms that were not easily bridged. Their love was a secret, shared only in the deepest groves and beneath the vast canopy of the forest. Theirs was a love that defied the laws of nature, a bond forged not by mere chance, but by the very forces that governed the world itself. But this love was not meant to last. As with all forbidden things, it was bound to be torn apart by the forces that sought to control the land, the gods who stood at the edges of the world, watching the mortals and the immortals alike. Their love was a threat to the cosmic balance, a union that could not be allowed to persist. The gods of order, of law, and of the heavens grew wary of the bond between Bendis and her lover. To them, the wildness of the earth and the moon was too dangerous, too unpredictable. And so, in the darkest hour of the night, when the moon was hidden behind clouds and the winds howled through the trees, the gods intervened. They tore the lovers apart, sealing their union with a curse that would forever keep them separated. Bendis, the goddess of the moon and the hunt, was banished from the earth, forced to wander the heavens above, her love tethered to the earth below, never to meet again. The curse was not only a punishment but a warning. It was said that the love between Bendis and her forbidden lover had caused an imbalance in the natural world. Their union, powerful and pure, threatened to unravel the fabric of reality itself. And so, they were torn apart, their love forbidden not just for its defiance of the natural order, but for the dangers it posed to the balance between the mortal and the divine. But their love did not die. It continued to linger in the hearts of those who dared to remember, whispered on the wind, felt in the rustling of the trees. The spirits of the earth and the moon, once bound together, now remained in constant, subtle tension, their energies forever intertwined. There are those who believe that in the darkest corners of the forest, where the moonlight barely touches the earth, Bendis and her lover still wait, still seek each other across the boundaries of time and space, their love unfinished, their connection unbroken. Some who seek Bendis, drawn by her call in the forest, claim to have glimpsed a shadowy figure walking beside her, not quite of this world. These sightings are rare and fleeting, like the flicker of a star in the night sky. They are seen only by those who dare to venture deep enough into the forest, to the places where the moonlight becomes thick and the shadows seem to breathe. In these moments, it is said that the essence of the forbidden lover can be felt, as though his presence lingers in the air, close enough to touch, but forever out of reach. The love of Bendis and her forbidden lover is not just a tale of passion. It is a story of sacrifice, of loss, and of the price that must be paid for defying the natural order. Their love is a reminder of the delicate balance that exists in the world, a balance that can be shattered by the smallest of actions, by the union of forces that should never be allowed to meet. But even in their separation, their love endures. It is woven into the very fabric of the forest, into the moonlight that bathes the land, into the whispers of the trees. It is a love that cannot be erased, a love that will always return. No matter how many lifetimes pass, no matter how many centuries slip away. For Bendis and her forbidden lover are not just gods, they are the embodiment of the wildness of the world, the eternal dance between light and shadow, between the earth and the sky. As you stand in the moonlit forest, beneath the branches that have witnessed the rise and fall of countless gods, you feel at the faintest stir in the air, a presence that is both ancient and timeless. The love of Bendis and her forbidden lover lingers, like a hidden pulse beneath the earth, waiting for those brave enough to listen, to feel, to remember. Time in the forests of Thrace moves strangely. It does not flow in a straight line, but rather twists and turns, like the winding paths through the dense trees. The echoes of the past are still alive here, hidden in the rustle of leaves, in the soft murmur of the wind, in the shadows that dance across the earth. Bendis's presence, though lost to most of the world, lingers in these shadows. As much a part of the forest as the trees themselves, out there is something unsettling about her memory. It is not just the feeling of being watched, the sense that the goddess is still out there, waiting. It is something more, a sense of something forgotten, something buried too deep for the human mind to grasp. The passage of time has not been kind to Bendis. Her name, once sung in the songs of the forest, has faded into obscurity. Her temples left to rot in the earth, her rituals forgotten. And yet the forest remembers. The truth of Bendis, the full truth of her power and her role in the cycles of life and death, has been obscured by the mists of time. Scholars and seekers have tried to piece together the fragments of her story, to uncover the meaning behind her reign as the Moon Huntress. But every attempt has been thwarted, for the goddess is not easily understood. Her legacy, like the forest itself, is layered and elusive, hiding the deeper truths in places that are inaccessible to those who seek only knowledge for the sake of knowledge. Perhaps it is because Bendis's power was never meant to be fully understood. She was not a goddess of rules and laws, not one whose influence could be neatly categorized. Her power was wild, untamed, and bound to the very fabric of the natural world. It was this untamable essence that made her so dangerous and so compelling. Her followers, in their devotion, sought to understand her, to touch the divine through their hunts and their rituals. But they could never truly grasp the full extent of her being. For Bendis was always just beyond their reach, just out of their understanding. As time passed, the forest that once flourished under her watch began to change. The land was altered, carved up by the hands of men, transformed into fields and villages, cities and roads. The gods of old were forgotten, pushed aside in favor of the new gods of civilization and conquest. The wild places of the world shrank, and with them, the power of the old gods. Yet in the heart of the forest, where the trees grow thick and the moonlight is faint, something still stirs. It is not a return, not yet. But it is a lingering presence, an imprint left behind by a goddess who once ruled the wild places. The story of Bendis, like the forest itself, is not one that can be easily told. It is a story of cyclical time, of life and death, of the eternal hunt that stretches across the ages. It is a story that exists not in linear progression, but in layers, each one a reflection of the one before it, yet never exactly the same. To truly understand Bendis is to accept the wildness of the world, the randomness of nature, and the deep connection between the mortal and the divine. Perhaps this is why her story has faded. The world is not ready for a goddess who cannot be controlled, who exists not to be worshipped in temples, but to be lived with, understood through communion with the wild, untamed earth. The gods of civilization, the ones who demand power, the ones who can be understood and molded are the ones that survive in the minds of men. But Bendis, the goddess of the wilds, the keeper of the hunt, is different. Her power cannot be tamed, her story cannot be fully written. And yet, in the deepest corners of the earth, in the heart of the ancient forest, there are still those who remember. They are the ones who seek the wild places. It's the ones who listen to the whispers of the trees and the wind, the ones who still walk the path of the hunt. For them, Bendis' story is not forgotten, it's just hidden, waiting for those brave enough to seek it out, to find it again. But even those who remember her know that Bendis cannot be understood in the way that the world understands gods. She is not a deity to be conquered, not one to be claimed or controlled. She is the wildness of the world itself, untamed, unknowable, eternal. Her presence is always there, just out of reach, hidden in the shadows of time. And perhaps that is the greatest truth of all. Bendis is not gone. She is simply waiting for the time when the world is ready to listen, to understand, and to remember. The forest, the hunt, and the moon still carry her name. The shadow of Bendis lingers, always waiting, always watching. The forest stands still under the gaze of the full moon, as if the land itself is holding its breath. The hunt has always been more than a mere chase. It is a journey into the unknown, a sacred rite, a test of spirit. But tonight, something is different. The air is thick with anticipation, heavy with the weight of centuries, as if the forest itself knows that the final hunt is drawing near. Bendis, the Moon Huntress, has waited for this moment for a long time. Her spirit lingers in the shadows, watching, waiting. The forest, once her domain, is no longer what it once was, its heartbeat slowed by the passage of time. Yet, the wildness of the world has never truly faded. The hunt, in all its ancient power, still calls to those who are willing to listen. Those who are ready to step into the darkness and embrace the wild. The final hunt is not a hunt for animals, nor for sustenance. It is a hunt for something deeper, something eternal. The hunters who answer the call are not the ones who seek glory or prize. They are the ones who seek to understand the mysteries of life and death, the ones who seek to commune with the wild places and the gods who once walked there. They are the ones who seek to uncover the truth hidden beneath the layers of time. But this hunt is not without its dangers. The moon's light is no longer a guiding beacon, it is a force, a power that holds the key to an ancient mystery. Those who seek to understand Bendis's true nature must pass through the veil of madness, must lose themselves in the shadows before they can find their way into the light. The moon's gaze is unrelenting, and the hunters must face not only the dangers of the forest, but the dangers of their own hearts. The line between hunter and hunted becomes increasingly difficult to discern. It is said that the final hunt begins with a choice to step into the unknown, to abandon the safety of the familiar world, and to walk the path of Bendis. Those who choose to follow her are not promised victory, nor are they promised anything at all. They are promised only the hunt and the transformation that comes with it. For some, this transformation is a descent into madness. The forest is not kind to those who are unprepared for what they will encounter. The hunt may drive them to the brink of insanity as they lose themselves in the wildness of the world. It is said that those who partake in the final hunt often return changed, haunted, their minds shattered by what they have seen. But for those who are truly ready, who have embraced the wildness within themselves, the hunt offers something far more profound, a glimpse into the nature of the world, into the divine balance that governs all life. The final hunt is a journey not just into the forest, but into the heart of the self. It is a test of endurance, of will, of spirit. It is a journey that demands everything from those who dare to take it. Those who return from it are not the same. They have touched the divine, seen the world as it truly is, and emerged from the shadows forever changed. And yet, for all the dangers and sacrifices, there is something beautiful in the final hunt. It is a return to the primal, a return to the wildness that lives in the heart of every living thing. It is a reminder that we are all part of the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In the hunt, we are reminded that we are not separate from the earth, but part of it. Our lives, like the animals we hunt, are fleeting, but they are also sacred. The hunt is not just an end, it is a beginning, a journey that continues, forever unfolding. As the moon rises higher in the sky, the hunters who answer Bendis's call step forward. They enter the forest, leaving behind the world they know, embracing the unknown. The final hunt is upon them, and with it, the last echoes of a goddess who once ruled the wild places of the earth. Her spirit guides them, as it has always guided those brave enough to follow the path of the hunt. And when the hunt is done, when the moon has set, and the forest falls silent once more, there will be no grand fanfare, no trophies to display. The final hunt will have left its mark, not on the body, but on the soul. Those who return will carry with them the knowledge of the wild, the understanding of the balance between life and death, between the mortal and the divine. And in the quiet spaces between the trees, Bendis will remain, watching, waiting for the next hunter brave enough to step into the shadows. The hunt never truly ends. It only waits for the next time the moon calls. The moon hangs heavy in the sky, its light spilling like liquid silver across the earth, bathing the forest in its ethereal glow. The hunt has ended. The final chase has come to a close. The forest is still now, silent in the aftermath, the echoes of the hunt lingering in the air. The hunters, having answered the call, have returned, changed, transformed, marked by the journey they have undertaken. They carry with them the weight of their experiences, the knowledge that has been passed down through the very essence of the hunt. But the story of Bendis, the Moon Huntress, does not end with the final hunt. No, her story is one that stretches beyond time, beyond the reach of mortal understanding. Her name may have faded from the world of men, but in the deepest corners of the earth, where the trees still stand tall and the moonlight falls in soft whispers, her spirit remains. She is not gone. She is not forgotten. She lives in the shadows, in the whispers that travel on the wind, in the soft rustling of the leaves. Bendis is still with us, in the places where the wild things roam, In the spaces between the worlds, waiting for those who dare to listen, the moon, once cold and distant, now feels closer, as if it has become a part of you. The hunt, the chase, the transformation, they have left an indelible mark on your soul. You are no longer the person you once were. You are both part of the forest and the goddess, bound to the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. You have glimpsed the wildness of the world. It's the truth that lies hidden beneath the surface. And you carry it with you, forever changed, forever marked by the moon's light. The truth of Bendis is not something that can be easily understood or explained. It is not a simple story with a clear beginning, middle, and end. It is a tale of mystery, of shadows, of wild things that can never truly be tamed. The hunt was never just about the animals. The kill, or the chase it, was about something deeper, something more primal. It was about communion with the earth, with the moon, with the very essence of life itself. It was about understanding the balance between the living and the dead, between the hunter and the hunted. And in that understanding, there is a transformation, one that cannot be undone. The final hunt may be over, but the whispers of the huntress still linger in the forest, still call out to those brave enough to answer. The goddess may no longer walk among mortals, but her spirit endures, a reminder of the wildness that lives within all of us. The moon's light is no longer just a reflection of the heavens. It is a beacon, a guide, a call to those who are ready to listen. To those who are ready to step into the shadows and embrace the hunt once more. If your candle hasn't gone out, then you're probably ready for the next god. There are more gods. There are always more gods. The next whisper is older still, only for those who truly listen. It seems that we have reached the end of the narrative. The story of Bendis, the Moon Huntress, has been woven through the shadows of time and space, her legend lingering in the forest, awaiting the next whisper. Her return, her call to the hunters who would answer, has played out in the echoes of ancient rituals and forgotten truths. The hunt is never truly overright, only waits hidden in the spaces between the living and the divine, waiting for those who seek the wild, for those brave enough to walk the path of Bendis once more. If there is another god, another story, or a new hunt you wish to explore, I am here to help guide you through it. Or if you seek to delve deeper into the mysteries of Bendis, of her followers, or the forgotten land she once ruled, you can return to the shadows where her whispers still echo. Now, the choice is yours.